This happened when I was only 8 or 9. My father and I went to Duke's Farm in New Jersey for a Cub Scout event. After the event, we walked around the estate with a friend and his father. We were walking by the stables, and there was this mansion, now removed, behind these gates. We all decided it would be fun to see what it was all about, so we went past the gates. I started getting this anxious feeling when we entered the gates, but I presumed it was from entering a restricted area and not wanting to break the rules. As we got closer to this mansion, I got this horrifying feeling of terror and started crying and begging my dad to leave. At the time, I didn't know why this was happening and was scared for my life. Years later, my father tells me his experience from that day. According to him, he froze in fear as well. He described it as evil entering him, and apparently told the evil, "I'm a follower of God. He will protect me." He was scared as well, but not as worried as me. We got out of there as quickly as we could, and kind of brushed the experience off. He didn't want to tell me this until a few years ago because he didn't want to scare me as a child. I've never been crazy into religion, and I'm very skeptical when it comes to paranormal experiences like this, but this experience was very real to me, and opened my eyes to what might be out there. Okay, so I've never posted on any paranormal subreddit before, and I'm naturally a very scientifically minded and rational person who comes from a place of skepticism. Basically, I'm trying to get some perspective on what happened and explore all avenues because I'm dumbfounded. Me and my 2 children were visiting my parents for dinner, and they live in the middle of the woods. It's my family home where I grew up. About halfway through the evening, the kids were watching TV inside, and my parents were busy talking in the other room, so I went out to my dad's detached shop to practice pool for a little while. I let them know where I was going before I did this. I'm an avid pool player, and he has a table, so I figured I would run some drills for about 30 minutes or so. After I finished up, I walked out the door to go back into the house, and it was almost dark. Still some light, but not much. I was halfway to the house when I heard a child's voice in the woods. I couldn't understand what it said, but it was clear as day and sounded like it was maybe 100 yards away. I stopped and looked in the direction it came from, trying to see if maybe it was one of my kids and they'd went outside without me knowing. Then I heard the voice again, and it literally said my name like it was calling me. However, it didn't really sound like one of my kids, so I yelled back and got no answer. I walked toward the woods a little, expecting to see who it was, but I never saw anything. I stood there for a while, calling, before I immediately went back inside to check on my kids to make sure one of them hadn't wandered off into the woods. And when I got inside, they were still sitting in the same spot watching TV. I asked my mom if they were outside, and she said they never went outside. Now, for some perspective, my parents live in the middle of nowhere. There's no houses within a mile of them, and no one else around them has kids who would know me by name. I'm genuinely creeped out by this. Has anyone else experienced anything similar? My grandpa said goodbye to my dad when he passed. To add some context, my dad isn't a very big believer of the paranormal, not a huge skeptic, but he tends to take things with a grain of salt, and looks for the logical explanation first and foremost. He's a very straight-to-the-point type of man, no time to add frill or useless detail to things. And although he was on good terms with my grandpa, they were never really close since my dad doesn't like social interactions and tends to isolate himself. Nevertheless, my grandpa always told me he was glad my mom had found my dad, since he knew he takes good care of her and loves her dearly. On the 21st of December, my dad was standing at work while on break. He had a can of Coke in his jacket's inside pocket at chest level, and started feeling like something was constricting him a bit. Not in a, I'm about to be crushed to death way, more so in a bear hug way. It only lasted a second or so, almost a blink and you'll miss it moment. But as it happened, the Coke that was in his jacket just randomly ended up bursting. He was only wearing a plain white t-shirt under his jacket, with nothing pointy or sharp that could have made the can burst on it. And yes, I get that it's weird that he does this, but he's been putting Coke cans in his chest pockets for years. This has never happened before to him. He works with my brothers, and they were both also very confused as to what could have caused that. He received a call from my mom, who was crying on the phone about 10 to 15 minutes later, telling him my grandpa had just passed away. My grandpa was an absolutely wonderful gem of a man, and I wouldn't put it past him to do something like this. If anything, it could have been to give my mom, who's also a very spiritual person, a physical sign that his passing wasn't rushed, and that he got to say his goodbyes in a way. He passed at home in his sleep after suffering from Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease for 7 to 8 years. So it really wasn't a rushed or violent death. I'm still not really sure what to think of it, to be completely honest. I guess it could have been a really odd coincidence, but it just feels like it was a bit more than that to me. In September, I dreamt of an old friend who told me, "I'm moving." I asked what she meant, and she gestured to a small, green house. I went inside it, walked around, opened some doors, and it was all empty. I went back outside and she was gone. I was confused. Then I woke up. In real life, I felt uneasy. I checked her Facebook that afternoon and found out that she had died a few days prior. I was very distressed and wept. I said my goodbye by leaving a drawing on her wall, which her family used in her obituary. I took it as a sign to get out of my art block and start sharing my drawings again. She used to lecture me for being shy about it. Last night, I dreamt about her again. I thought she was alive and I hugged her. It felt so real, and we talked. I told her how much she inspired and helped me. She mostly just smiled and listened. I asked, "How did you feel about everyone who said goodbye?" She said, "I was surprised." I woke up and realized she was still gone. I cried again. I just wanted to reach out here in case someone else has had experiences like this. I miss my friend. This happened to me about an hour ago. I was walking my dog and we were walking down the street of the neighborhood I live in. I then heard an owl making their typical noise. And then I walked further with my dog through the neighborhood with the owl assumingly constantly moving, even though there were no real trees. I followed the sound further because I have a personal connection to them. After many direction changes, I found myself down at the forest's edge. When I arrived there and was standing before the dark entrance, the owl was gone, and a creepy crawling could be heard, which was faster than it should have been, and being directed toward me, coming from deep inside the woods. Then I heard the owl again, hooting from the direction the strange approaching crawling sounds came from. My dog then became terrified and started threatening whatever was lurking in the darkness with growling. At that point, because the crowing became even more fast and unsettling, I sprinted backward about 30 meters and turned around to see if something was behind me. Then it was the owl again, as if telling me to come back. When I told my dog to calm down and that we will head home, distorted laughter was what I heard. It was a laughter that was not really human. After that, I headed straight home and locked all the doors. It was and is nighttime here. Thank you for reading, and please share your thoughts on the matter. I don't know how to explain all of this. We've all heard that children and animals can see things, though we can't. They're more sensitive to the paranormal and supernatural side of things. I didn't really believe this at first, until my own kids were born. They've all had their own experiences, but this one is about my youngest daughter. I'll call her Bella. My father-in-law was one of those people who begged for grandchildren. Every family get-together was always, "When are you all going to have grandbabies for me?" Well, it happened, and he was a phenomenal grandfather. He was never too tired to play, no mess was too big, and he never said no. But life happened, and sadly he passed from a heart attack. My girls were 2 years old, and Bella was just 8 months old. It shattered us. Even me, because he'd been in my life since I was 14. He was a second dad to me. It hit my 2-year-old pretty hard, but Bella, I thought was too young to understand, obviously. Fast forward to Bella being a little over a year old. Every time I'd hold her, she'd look off into corners, walls where nothing was, and smile and wave. I just thought she was being a baby doing weird things. But then she learned to talk. This is where it gets eerie. I'd hear her talking to herself when her sister would be nowhere around. I listened one day and heard, "I know you miss Rowdy, Papa, but Nana is taking care of him. Rowdy was his pet Shih Tzu." I walked in to ask her who she was talking to. She replied, "Papa Troy. He misses Rowdy. Oh, and he said tell Nana, happy and very sorry." I knew she was trying to say anniversary, because their anniversary was the next day. My mouth dropped. She didn't know that. She was too little. Over the years, Bella would talk about him working in the coal mines, the machines he worked on, his friends and their families, things she was not told about. Then another big incident where we were all freaked out. He wore a set of dog tags that he never took off when he was alive. When my mother-in-law boxed up all his stuff, she misplaced them. She was very distraught over that. She babysat my girls one day and called me crying, "Bella found his tags." I was so confused. She explained that she was walking my girls around outside and her wedding rings on her finger started to feel like it was burning or tingling. She ignored this, but Bella said, "Papa is trying to tell you his tags fell into the vent in your bedroom." There were even times when she was talking to him when you could smell his cologne or almost hear him. She went inside to look and there they were. Bella is 6 now and barely remembers these things, but I think it's obvious that she could see her papa. I'm very confused. I don't really believe in ghosts, but I wish I had an answer for what happened last night. At around 3:30 a.m., while in bed with my wife, half asleep, I heard the strings of my guitar being strummed before the guitar fell, quite heavily, making a loud noise. This guitar was leaning in an angle between a furniture and the wall. It's been like this for months, and no one has touched or moved it recently, so there was no reason for it to fall at this particular moment. I've had that guitar for over 10 years, and it never fell. Anyway, I woke up and decided to go to the bathroom to get some water, and the scene was straight out of a nightmare. A pipe of the shower had been damaged. I don't know what happened yet. It almost looked like too much pressure made it explode or something. And water was spraying everywhere. The bathroom was completely flooded. So naturally, I cut the water off, and then I found the lower floor flooded as well, with parts of the ceiling peeling off. The only reason I woke up and went to the bathroom was because of the guitar's loud noise. I'm so confused. What would have happened if I hadn't gotten up? Also, I watched very carefully the way the guitar ended up on the ground and tried to recreate the way it could have fallen. I swear, there is no way it could have fallen without some force interacting with it, especially in the position I found it in. And I didn't manage to explain the strumming either. It makes no sense. I'd like to point out that I don't see how the guitar and the pipe breaking could have been linked. I was half asleep, but conscious, and felt no shaking or earthquake or whatever. And when the guitar fell, the pipe was already broken for some time. When I woke up to go to work around 6:30, I'm pretty sure I heard some kind of music coming from my bedroom while I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth. I went to the room and there was no music anymore. I asked my wife if she heard it, or if she had an alarm on or something. She said she didn't hear anything. Maybe I just have a lack of sleep? I don't know. Please share your thoughts. Hello all. Long-time reader and first-time posting on here, but I feel I need help piecing this together. Last night, as I was laying in bed with my girlfriend, I heard a bang outside around 2:45-ish. Now this is typical living in a rural area, as it could have been a number of different animals, though it was loud enough for me to get out of bed to check just in case. The first time I walked into the living room and peered out of the door, I saw nothing but a chair that was knocked over. Again, nothing atypical from the norm. When I climbed back into bed, I was wide awake. I decided to turn on a movie until I was tired again. I didn't get the chance to turn up the TV when I heard it. 3 distinct taps on one of the windows on the back side of our house. I was instantly hit with fight or flight. And like the fool I am, I chose fight. For context, I live with my girlfriend, her mom, and brother, and I will be damned if I let anything happen to them. I ran outside arming myself with a chair on the front porch that had previously been knocked over and started looking for the late-night predator that decided to make itself known. Barefoot and half naked, I walked through our yard looking for footprints in the freshly fallen snow, but saw nothing but my own. I felt vulnerable being outside with no shoes, and I was in no shape for a fight if I did see someone, so I snuck back in the house trying not to wake anyone else up. But I did decide to wake my girlfriend up to see if she had heard, but it was only me. I crawled back in bed, and no more than 10 minutes later, a second set of knocks came. Once again, 3 knocks, this time louder than the first. Loud enough for myself, my girlfriend, and her mom to hear. I took off now, prepared with clothes, shoes, and a golf club. I was prepared to stop this by any means necessary. I felt like a trapped dog getting ready to pounce, filled with fear and anger. I searched our entire property and our neighbor's property. We were very close with our neighbors, so I wanted to make sure they were okay too. I searched between the 2 properties for the upwards of an hour looking for any kind of tracks in the snow and found nothing. It was like it didn't exist. No entry or exit. I know what I heard. I know something had to have knocked. I feel like I'm going crazy because I can't find any answers. I've also been seeing the number 13 everywhere, and I don't know if the 2 are connected. I've read that I might be marked for death. If anyone can bring insight for me, I would be truly grateful. Thank you. When I was in middle school, I had a couple of experiences which I've mostly just blown off, but I still question them to this day. The first one was when I visited the cemetery by my house with a friend at night. We snuck in and were walking around, and we started feeling different presences as we walked by the graves. I didn't say anything at first, but after a couple graves, I heard something that sounded like scratching and moaning for help. I turned to walk away, and my friend asked, "Do you hear that?" She explains that she hears something scratching, so we decided to walk around some more, but we both kept feeling like someone was forcing emotions on us. We'd walk by one and feel angered, and another one would feel sad and grief, as if we were feeling how these people felt in their last moments. There's the one grave plot that had a stone perimeter with a small black bench inside and a gate. We both heard quiet sobbing and looked over and saw a woman's head crying into her hands. At that point, we decided it would be best to leave. But to leave, we would have to walk past that plot again. When we walked past it and turned around, she disappeared completely and it was silent. We started walking toward the hole in the fence faster, and behind us we saw different sized figures of different colors from black to white and gray, and they were all walking toward us really fast. We ran out of there and back to my house, and we never spoke of it again. My second memorable experience was when I was with another friend at their house, and our mom took us to get snacks, and we got back around 9 p.m. And we walked into the house, and their very friendly little dog had destroyed the whole house. I'm talking, the place looked like it got raided. As we were cleaning up, their front gate starts to swing open and closed, then stops and starts back again after a couple minutes, and their porch light is flickering. It was a very peaceful night, not a cloud in sight, not a single breeze. As my friend and I are cleaning her room, her mom calls us to the living room, and the moment I walk in there, it felt ice cold, as if something is trying to pull me down into the ground. I sat on the couch as her mom poured salt around the perimeter of their house. Very superstitious woman. She tried to get their dog to walk out the back door, but the dog was refusing to move at all and was just staring at the door. Very quickly, I see a black figure about 6'5" with glowing eyes slip through the door into their kitchen around the corner. I decided to go home after that. The third experience was when I visited my dad's aunt in the nursing home for the first time. I know that she was old and almost dead, so she didn't exactly understand anything, but when she saw me the first time, she said, "Amal?" My dad's father, who offed himself when my dad was 13. I brushed it off as she was old and dying, but later that day we visited his grave. And while my mom was cleaning up the grave, a bird kept following me and would not leave me alone. And once again, I brushed it off as just nature. About a year later, I went downstairs into the kitchen to get water at around 2 a.m., and I saw my grandfather just sitting on the couch looking forward. He turned his head toward me and said, I'm sorry I wasn't a better father. I brushed it off as me being tired and had just woken up. Later in the morning, when everyone was up, my dad told me that it was his father's birthday. To this day, 5 years later, I still haven't told him what I saw. But my grandmother later in the year visited, and I overheard her telling my dad, "I had a very vivid dream of your father last night, and he told me he is sorry for the way he treated us." There are obvious explanations for all of this, but these are some of the more memorable experiences which I think about from time to time and question whether or not I'm just going crazy. Feel free to give me your opinions because I just keep thinking about these things and feel completely crazy. Or you can offer any solutions or explanations. Those are welcome too. So my husband and I bought some small LED Christmas lights from Walmart and hung them on the top of our wooden headboard a few nights ago. I usually keep them on throughout the night until we are officially ready to close our eyes and sleep. Well, both of us got up a few hours ago to grab some food and had just been hanging out in the pitch black cuddling or watching videos on our phones. My husband was lying on his side facing our sliding glass door to the porch, and I was lying on my back, listening to a sleep meditation with my eyes open. Suddenly, the Christmas lights turn on. At first, I didn't realize what was going on, but then I told my husband to look and explain that I didn't touch them, and that they are battery operated, with a soft plastic button you have to push in order to turn them on. I grabbed the cord to see where it led, and the battery case and button is set nicely on the shelf located on my side of the headboard all by itself. Needless to say, I'm thoroughly creeped out, and so is my very masculine, not easily intimidated husband. Backstory: the real estate agent that helped our family find this house informed my mother-in-law that the couple that lived here before us would get the cops called on them all the time for domestic disputes, noise complaints, and welfare checks. The neighbors would hear them scream and yell and act completely hateful and almost homicidal to one another. The month that the couple split up, and as far as I've been told and moved out of the house, the husband, whom was alleged as the primary aggressor, took his own life. No one other than my family has lived here since, but everyone that lives here, and some who don't, have either experienced something bizarre, noted some kind of dark energy, mood swings, anxiety, or seen things move or turn off by themselves. I'm not saying for sure that the previous couple and the undeniable bad aura surrounding this house are related, but based off my own experiences in the past year of living here, it's too coincidental for my liking. My husband and I are newly married, 10/24/22, and I'm almost 6 months pregnant, but we've known each other since we were 12 or 13. I'm 26, he's 27. We have had our differences and have obviously gotten on each other's nerves before we lived here. But since moving in, it's like we've just become different at times. The way we fight has completely changed, and that's scary. I'll spare the minor details of that for now, but I've never seen or heard my husband or myself behave in ways that we have toward each other before this. Some of that I believe is due to stress, but we have become aggressive, hateful, irrational, and impulsive. Just clouded with anger for no reason sometimes. I genuinely think whatever is turning my Christmas lights on is causing my recurring nightmares, making me and the man I love behave like barbarians, and maybe adding to the cause of my prenatal depression. Help me. Any advice is welcome. I think I'm being followed by a ghost and hunted. Before, I had dreams about a voodoo man just telling me numbers and saying things that I didn't understand, but I couldn't make out the words he was saying. So I shrugged it off, then a few days later it happened again, but he gave me coordinates. So I decided to look up the numbers that he gave me. Turns out those numbers lead to the east side of Manhattan, New York. But they didn't appear again, so it was about 3 months, and I was doing a ritual with the Tianos about honoring our ancestors. While I was playing the drum, I saw something in the distance, and this is where things start to get really blurry. I remembered staring at the cars that were parked and just blinked out from there, and I don't really remember much from that moment, but I was staring at a being, and it looked like my dead grandfather, but it didn't feel like him, and the fact that he wanted me to go with him was something I had to say no to, but he kept following me. I haven't told my parents this, and I know they believe in this type of stuff. I just haven't yet. Someone please help me on what just happened to me. If you've just come to the end of this video, I want to give you a big thank you for watching or listening, whatever your preferred method is. My name is Zach, and I'm the narrator for Fear Harbor. If you have any stories that you'd like me to narrate, please let me know down in the comment section. Otherwise, if you feel so inclined, please hit the bell icon, thumbs up, and subscribe. Have a great night.